Blake Snell finally signs. Closers are dropping like flies. Tout Wars happened, and I drew my slot in the NFBC main event. All that and more on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. As always, we are brought to you by Fantrax and RivalFantasy. Fred, it's a wild news cycle right now. I was traveling back from Tout Wars, and every time I get on a plane, something wild happens. This time, it was Jhoan Duran. We'll talk him in a second. We're going to open Jhoan Duran in the closers, and then we'll get to the Blake Snell signing. But first, Jhoan Duran is going to go on the IL with an oblique injury, a moderate strain.
Yeah, this one feels like he probably misses. So my initial guess, and I had to adjust my Yahoo rankings, that he misses all of April. What do you think? He pitches for the Twins at the beginning of May. The Twins said that they will have more information in a few days, but we don't have a few days if you draft right now. So
Exactly.
So you're like, thanks, Twins. Well, if I have a draft tonight or tomorrow. So anyways, I'm going to go with right now, like a May 1st.
We've got it April 22nd. I think that's, that's, we can quibble. If it's a month of May, I'm going to have to reduce his projection more. I've got him currently at 54 games, 58 innings, 31 saves. But if he misses an entire month, that's going to have to change. And in fact, it's going to change now. In fact, I've already decided that I have to lower that value a little bit more. So, and that's a shame because he was a top 5 closer. And this is our second top 5 closer, depending on how you have the ranks. But one of them for sure was Devin Williams. He goes down with the back injury. He's out 3 months minimum. Now we're talking Jhoan Duran, and we got another one to talk about here in a second. The pressure on getting a closer, an established closer, is high right now.
Yeah, it's you and I have already drafted a lot of teams, so I have no Duran and I have no Devin Williams, but I have other players, TJ Friedl and et cetera, who we'll talk about in this episode. But you're really starting to feel this week the pinch of like I always say that fantasy baseball, it's the art of a perfectly made plan slowly coming unraveled. Like I'm really seeing that with some of these things this week. Like people thought, oh, I got Duran, I'm loaded, or I got Devin Williams,
right.
I'm loaded. And like you said, so
everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Until they get punched in the mouth. That's right. So yeah. So obviously this pushes all the other closers up. Does it change your strategy for drafts going forward? Like I was pretty vocal that my strategy was to wait until about 6-7 closers were off the board, and then I would jump in. I guess for me, for upcoming drafts, I'll need to wait until maybe more like 4 or 5 closers are off the board, because my tier drop doesn't really change, right? Like there's just fewer guys before we get to Jose Alvarado. Yeah, that's really what it's at. But before we get to when we're hitting the Clay Holmes, Ryan Helsley, Craig Kimbrell, Tanner Scott, the bottom of what I would be comfortable with as my second closer, like that's just they're all 2 spots higher on the list now.
They all are, at least, and I think they're all even pushed even higher too. And that tier below it is getting pushed up. I'll direct you to just you want to look at the NFBC main event, which is 15 teams overall contest. So with those caveats in mind, Jose Alvarado's ADP in 8 main event drafts so far, 162. That he used to be over 200. Robert Suarez is at 166. Alex Lang is at 168. Jose Leclerc is at 170. You can't wait till after pick 200 to get your second closer now. And if that's your first one, oi.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, oi, for sure. And Duran so in the last 2 days, Duran has a draft where he went 60th. There's been 2 drafts, main events in the last 2 days. One of them he went 60th. The other one he went 181st. I think going forward now he'll go 181st or something like that.
I don't think he goes that low. I think.
So where did you put him on your list? So where I have him right now is after Clay Holmes. He's my next guy. I have him. And Clay Holmes' ADP is 97. Wow. So I have Tanner Scott right with Clay Holmes. I am noted as the guy who likes Kimbrell. So I don't know where I'm just looking at where Kimbrell is in the last couple of days. 76 in the last 2 main events.
Everything's getting up, dude. Everything,
Where's Pete Fairbanks? So Pete Fairbanks is the guy who I'm a little low on, just injury concerns. He's 81. So once all of those guys are gone, then Duran's the next guy. Helsley, I see at 93. Holmes, okay, Holmes at 99. Scott at 103. Okay, Duran would be my next guy. So Duran for me, and that's actually where he is in the hierarchy in those two drafts. But that's where he'd be for me. So a round pick 120, something like that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the other closer issue, and that's Jordan Romano. He popped up on the news reports with elbow inflammation. MRI was sound, but they're letting him rest for 3 days from throwing, at least 3 days, to let the swelling subside and let that inflammation shot take effect, basically. So this is a guy that had back problems last year, struggled after the All-Star game last year. What's your take on Jordan Romano?
Yeah, hasn't had like arm issues haven't been a big thing for Romano before, but like you said, the back last year and some diminished effectiveness late last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit concerning. Like at this point, where would you draft? So how about this? Duran, I'm actually comfortable drafting because I'm going to push him down to where I think he belongs. And if that's pick 135 or 150, then if he gets there, then and I have a need, I'll draft him. Romano, I'm not sure where to push him at, so far. So far in the main event, and this news just came out today, his ADP is 68. His latest pick is 77. I'm assuming he goes like you do your own projections. You have to take like 10 innings off at least right now, don't you?
Right. I did a 10% reduction in both Romano and his teammate Erik Swanson's playing time. Swanson's got some stuff going on here too. Brooks Durham asked, do you take Mason Miller over Romano and Duran? Jhoan Duran?
No, because I'm not totally confident that Mason Miller's for sure going to be the closer, and I'm also not sure that even 6 months of the A's closer can get more saves than 5 months of the Twins closer, 5 months of the Blue Jays closer, plus this is the other thing that people don't talk about enough. Plus I can use another pitcher in that active roster spot for a month.
Right.
So like I could take Jordan Romano, and then in the last round, I could take Chad Green or Yimi Garcia and hope that that if Romano misses a couple weeks or something, 3 weeks, whatever, that I could get saves from someone else. I can take Duran, and then later in my draft, I could take Griffin Jacks or Brock Stewart. The problem with both of those situations is it's the same with the Brewers. We're not like 100% sure of who will get the saves until they come back. It would be really nice. I think it's Griffin Jacks in Minnesota. With Toronto, I'm not totally sure. Like without Swanson, I kind of see it as like a Green or Garcia.
Yeah.
But you could draft those guys late. It wastes a roster spot where you could also be drafting like a late interesting pitcher and things like that. Like it wastes a roster spot, but
I don't think it's Yariel Rodriguez, who's mentioned in the chat, because I think Yariel Rodriguez, they want him to start still, even though he's been slow to ramp up.
Yeah, and he hasn't. Yeah, nothing notable's happened with Rodriguez this spring. Yeah, I don't see him being like a big part of the Blue Jays bullpen. I don't think he'll start the year in the Blue Jays bullpen. Although no, actually, I still don't think he'll start the year. I know they, when they were talking today about who would replace Swanson and Romero just on the roster, they didn't really mention him. They mentioned Zach Pop. They mentioned Brandon Little. Someone else who escapes my mind right now, but they didn't mention him. I think he's going to stay stretched out, and he's going to go to Buffalo. Okay. Because they also are dealing with the fact that they don't have Manoah. So Bowden Francis, you're my $1 hero in your AL only league. He's now in the rotation. And then they may need to replace Kevin Gossman the first time through the rotation. That could be Mitch White. So the Jays are it's like they're not in a bad way. They might be fine, but they're certainly scrambling to cover some things here for maybe the first week or two of the season.
Yeah, they are. And there's a lot of teams in that mode right now. I tweeted on Sunday how bad the Reds situation is with all their injuries. Jake Fraley's fine, but he left yesterday's game, after racking himself on a foul ball. But he's going to be there. So, it's tough. It's tough for ramping up here. It's funny because we think, okay, we got our finally laid plans. We've got our early. So I like this. And then bam, that happens. Bam, that happens. And all of a sudden, okay, now we're Now we're like, okay, when's our first fab? When can I bid on Joel Payamps? And is it, and for that matter, Payamps throws hard, but guess what? So does Abner Uribe, who also throws hard and has the closer skill set there. Abner Uribe throws 99.5 miles an hour in his average fastball. The Brewers might go to Uribe if he get it. They say they're going to just pass the fireman's hat around, but if one guy nails down 2 or 3 in a row, it could be that could all change. So you're hoping to get the right one there.
For sure. And I think I know that you have I've heard you before talk about Uribe. I still think if I'm grabbing one, I still think it's Payamps.
Me
but
too.
Payamps costs so much more. Like when I was doing my projections, after the Devin Williams injury, I didn't give Payamps like 15 saves or anything because I'm not that sure. You know what I mean? I gave him like 10. And then I gave a few to Uribe. It could be one who gets the 15 though. In the end, the odds are on Payamps, but he's costing so much more in drafts right now that maybe around 27 on Uribe or something like that might make just as much sense as let me just look at Payamps and maybe actually his ADP
Payamps isn't that expensive. Yeah,
he's not. It's 296. Although I see a 170 in there. So. Yeah. And there's 8 main events so far. So now I'm looking at all main events. There's a 392, which is obviously before.
I'm looking at the same thing as you are. Yep.
Yeah, before the injury. So, if he starts going 250, 230, 220, like that's pretty early. Like you can get a pretty decent player around there. As far as like you could draft Payamps around 220 and get nothing. Right. Yeah. So and then someone else is like Heimer Candelario goes at 222. So you can get like a pretty solid like lineup piece like Heimer Candelario is probably basically like a plug and play guy
someone who you have in a labor or mixed labor, I should say.
Mixed labor, yeah.
Right. By the way, look just slightly above Payamps. You'll see Devin Williams at pick 290 in the main event, but with the widest range you can imagine, 72 to 412.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've got leagues. I'm assuming the 72 was maybe before we knew everything about him, or it was someone who just missed the memo, but probably before we knew everything about him. The 412 is really late. Like, I don't really like drafting in the NFBC formats. In NFBC formats, I'm pretty much out on like guys who are going to be out until June or July. Like, I don't even really consider them. Like, I took Max Scherzer in the Tout Wars draft and hold, and I was excited to. I would take him in labor. And I took Clayton Kershaw in labor or unlimited IL. In the NFBC ones, I don't really want to take Devin Williams. I don't know how late it would have to go before I take him at some point, but I don't really want to take him.
I get the feel that the Milwaukee replacement is this year's AJ Minter. Someone that you can use for 2 months, 3 months, get you a bunch of saves, and then
and you just dump
him. Thank him, and wish him good luck if Devin Williams comes back. But Devin Williams might not come back too. He might have a setback. That's still one of the range of outcomes when it comes to Devin Williams.
And if it's Payamps and he pitches like he did last year, you may keep him. Guys, relievers who have a 2.55 ERA, a 1.05 WHIP, 77 strikeouts, like those guys hang around. Like on especially in the second half of the season when pitching starts to disappear, when the injuries continue to pile up, and you just need a Jason Adam type, a Brian Abreu type. Like Payamps could just. But like you said, like almost all of his value might be clustered in 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Griffin Jax, same thing. I think Griffin Jax is even more likely where if he got the saves in Minnesota, when Jax doesn't have as great of ratios, like I think when Duran comes back, Jax might be a guy you hold him for a month, he gets you 5 saves, you dump him.
Right. That's right. I think that's going to be a fun one there. We spent a lot of time on closers because it's always topical, first of all. There's other huge, massive news, and that is Blake Snell is no longer a free agent. Finally, we have Blake Snell's news. He is a Giant 2-year deal, $62 million with an opt-out after the first year. Definitely not what he was looking for, but it's not the worst thing in the world to have the short-term. Every player wants a long-term security, but if he crushes again this year, well, he could be back out on the open market and he'll get a good deal still.
For sure. And this is real. This is where baseball's going with pitching, especially. This is where baseball's going with contracts, but especially with pitching contracts, like major league teams really do not want to hand out long contracts to pitchers. So they're not afraid to pay them, but they don't want to tie themselves to a pitcher for 5 years if they can avoid it. So you've got to be really special. So this is what they want. They want to pay the pitcher he gets his $30+ million a year. That's so much money, but it's only 2 years. So then you're not sitting. I was actually just talking to a friend today about it, and we were talking about the fact that our Blue Jays basically don't have any dead money anymore with Hyun-Jin Ryu gone. Well, they might end up with dead money if one of these pitchers doesn't come back, but basically everyone on the team who's getting paid is part of the roster. So teams don't want to end up with a 5-year contract and then Blake Snell's done and then they've got to carry him for 2 more years at $30 million. Like, they don't want to do that. They would rather pay the guys and short-term contracts, and the guys who they're paying, they know are actually going to, compete with their team, or at least the likelihood's really high. So
Yep.
anyways, this is a good landing spot for him. I think everyone agrees on that because of the park. For really, I think how you project him now going forward is how many innings is he going to throw? I know he's stretched out. I know he's been throwing. It's not like he's just been sitting at home on the couch. But he's still, I don't think, going to be in the Giants rotation the first turn through, is he?
I don't think so. He's going to pitch Friday. They said they want to get him some live innings. He threw 4 innings in that simulated game, but come on, that's hard to say. I'm a little wary of saying that Boris isn't going to have the ability to have a camp that's on a par with baseball, but I think it's the lack of competition, the lack of edge has to matter somewhat.
Oh, yeah, I think so too. And just I know what you mean about Boris, but just the normalcy of spring training too. Like, these guys are all creatures of habit. Yeah, I don't know. I think I have him now. I still have him pretty low, like, because I have the innings docked a bit. Like, I have him in my top 30 starters, but not by that much. I still won't come out. I won't come away with Blake Snell in any of my future drafts. And I think I'm okay with that. How about you? Like, how high? So just a quick little, like Blake Snell or Jesus Luzardo?
I'd probably say Snell. I think I was drafting him. Let me check. Let me check.
I'm still on. I would still be Luzardo at that point.
Yeah.
The other thing with Snell is like the inconsistency throughout his career, like the amazing last year, like good the year before, but injured, the year before that, bad and injured. Like, yeah, that's part of the thing is like Blake Snell at the end of May last year had a 4.50 ERA. Like, he's been really up and down.
Terrible early on. That's right.
Yeah.
He got bombed in his first start, a home start against the Rockies. You're like, Rocky Road. I am all in on Blake Snell and DFS and all that. Yeah. And the thing is, yes, he's always a walker. He's always, even in his best year, he's still a walker, and you worry about that. I currently have Snell over Luzardo. I think I'm a little cautious on Luzardo too. I have him for 167 innings, but I think it's the ratios I'm a little lower on. And of course, the team aspect there is kind of scary. I might be unfair on Luzardo. I'm looking at that a little closer. 12-1 K to walk this spring. I mean, even though his ERA is not any good, who cares about that in spring training ERA? But yeah, he had a 121 whip last year, though. Luzardo did. So that's not ace. That's SP2 or SP3.
Yeah, for me with Snell, it is the whip that holds him back. Like, his career whip's 124. I mean, you can parse that however you want. His whip his first couple seasons was poor, so if we took those out, it would be lower. But even if we look at the last few years, last year 119, the year before 120.
Best year. Yeah,
119. The year before, which was a decent year, which just with an injury, 120. The year before that, 132. The year before that, 120. Before that, 127. Like, other than the 1 year in 2018 when he had a 0.97 whip, like, he's pretty much the last 5 years he's consistently been like a 120 to 125, like, whatever. So you can put it wherever you want, but once you start putting a whip that's like 122 in your projection, it drives him down, because there's other guys in there, the guys ahead of him, the Logan Gilberts, the Tarek Skubals, like those guys, like, they have whips, around 1.1, things like that.
I don't have either starter right now, for what it's worth. So I will find other alternatives, I guess, is my real answer. But yeah, it's funny. You're looking at some of the ADP risers and fallers. I was looking at Snell. He's at 79 in those 8 main events. Right behind him is Chris Sale at 83 in 8 main events so far.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So
that price has gone up big time.
Yeah, it is. It's going to go up. I just won't be in on it, but it's going to go up.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Adam Lee says, In the chat room says makes you think, does one take a consistent guy like Bassett over Snell in remaining drafts? I mean, that is a path, and you won't have to pay the same price for Bassett because you're not getting the strikeouts, obviously. It's funny. His name came up in AL Tout Wars, and Larry Schechter nominated him. Like, oh, that's a Larry Schechter guy, and sure enough, he was in on the bidding on him. And I think maybe the price went up a buck or two because of that. He said, "Oh, you got me on that one," or something like that afterwards. Pick 132 for Bassett. I mean, I had Bassett last year. There are games where he puts the ball in play a little too much against good teams.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not excited, for Bassett for that reason, but I have him in one league. I wasn't excited to take him, but my numbers still come out that he's like you described. He's cromulent.
Yeah. Thanks for using. I like that you've used my term of art.
I started to use that. Like as your number 3, he's cromulent. He's fine. Hopefully he's fine. That's the thing. I'm not totally sure, but
I don't take him over Snell or Luzardo. I take him as
I have him a good tier below them.
Yeah. 15-team league. How many starting pitchers do you want after 10 rounds? 3?
Probably 3.
Maybe 4 if you have one closer.
It's
tough though to pass on that many hitters.
I don't mind having 5 pitchers after 10 rounds, but none of them in the first, say, 3 rounds.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that. That's a very Fred-like structure. If I can think of one there.
Yeah.
All right. Before I get on to some of the other news, and there is plenty of it, I'm going to share you a quick note from our friends at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, Fantrax makes it easy. Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. Fantrax offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? Fantrax offers more customization than any other platform. Waivers, categories, scoring system, schedule. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and more. And it's all free. Sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. I'm in a league. My only keeper league is tonight. We are switching over to Fantrax from another service, so I'm excited about that. One of the things I like about Fantrax is, like, in auction, if you have a multi-position player, you can shift positions on him to allow for, like, when a player comes up, you can still buy that player and still be able to make it fit. Other services are a little bit more rigid on their positions. Once you set the position, you can't move it in auction, and that's frustrating.
Right. Yeah. No, that would be a lot better.
Yeah. All right. We're also on the Blue Wire Network. As always, here are their ads. All right. Thanks, everybody, for that. Let's get on to the next player. This in the middle of Tout Mixed, Eury Perez's name came up, and the bidding went, and I think he went for $7 or $8, maybe $10, maybe. And someone said afterward, that was cruel of you to nominate him, because Eury Perez, the news broke on Eury Perez during the middle of Tout Mixed on Saturday there, with the news that it was an elbow and not just the fingers, that he had some elbow inflammation. Is going to shut him down from pitching for a while.
Yeah. So then I was trying to figure out how low I was going to push him down on my list. Let me see where I settled with him. Right now, I have Eury Perez.
He went for 12, by the way, in a 15-team mixed auction on Saturday, and that was as the news was breaking. I bet you'd go cheaper now.
Oh, I have him way down, at pitcher 59. So I have him just for a few bucks. So I would have him just for a few bucks as pitcher 59 right now. Yeah. Maybe that's me being overly cautious, but I put him way down into the Charlie Morton territory.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. So obviously you can see in the NFBC ADP, you can see the before the news breaking and the after news breaking range of 64 to 290 on Eury Perez. I don't think I think I'd probably take him before 290, but
me too.
I don't know. Maybe I won't,
Well, I have Charlie Morton. I said he was in the Charlie Morton range. His main event ADP is 220. So
yeah,
I guess I've got him
290 is in like is in the Lance Lynn, Frankie Montas, Jordan Hicks range, Andrew Abbott. Yeah, I'd take Eury Perez over all those guys.
Yeah, I'm looking. I have him around Chris Sanchez too, who's pick 194.
I like Chris Sanchez.
So I'm going to say somewhere in and around pick 200.
Yeah, I would take Chris Sanchez before I would take Eury Perez at this point. And I already didn't have any Eury Perez because I was worried about the shutdown factor, how many innings he would throw. And then the fact that he was dealing with a fingernail issue, and does that mean he can't throw his pitches a certain way? It might be a big fat nothing. It might be he's just fine. But I don't know.
Jeff, would you be more or less likely to take him in a big contest like the main event?
Less likely. But that's just my conservative nature.
Yeah, I was going to say, so like when I step back and think about it, and I'm not in the main event this year or anything, but I feel like people should be more likely to go out on this limb, because this isn't like Devin Williams where he's been ruled out for half the season. So there is no rainbow, like there is no sunny side to this. Like I feel like people should be more willing to possibly take a chance on this, because if it hits, like that's how you win it. That could be how you win a main event.
I also think, well, here's the thing, and there's two schools of thoughts on this. I also am less inclined to do so if I've already taken risks with pitching.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Other people will say, well, you build a portfolios of some of those hit, and boom, you have you multiply your windfall. You also multiply your losses if it doesn't work out. Ray Flowers once did. I think it was the lockout year. There was still a bunch of free agents in labor, and they labor always auctions early, and this is a mono league. And he drafted 5 free agents, hoping that 3 of them go sign with his league, and all 5 signed with the other league. So it's just the do theory doesn't always work. Odds don't always in favor.
Yeah, 1 year in our labor league, I remember Mike Podhorzer. He took like all of the riskiest players.
I remember that.
He took. I remember Adalberto Mondesi was like the poster child for it.
Yeah.
But he took a bunch of players who were either injury risks or performance risks, and it didn't really work out. Like a couple of them hit, but a lot of them didn't. So like you said, you can take a Eury Perez, but you can't take 6 of them.
Right.
You can't draft him, and you also in the NFBC got a bench to worry about. Like you can't take him and Garrett Cole, and Jhoan Duran or whatever. But the interesting thing with Perez is right now is we just don't know as much as we do about someone like Duran or someone like Devin Williams as far as when he'll be back.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And I think that's why I probably won't get a good question, follow-up question. In a keeper league, Eury is almost always universally a keeper. Would you toss him back and rebuy? I think some of that depends on the terms you have him. I mean, if you had him as a minor leaguer, chances are you got him super cheap this year. In which case, no, I wouldn't toss him back, because you're not going to get, I mean, you're restarting maybe the clock on him by 1 year. And you're probably paying no less than you're keeping him at. If you're in a league where you picked him up as a free agent, say you picked him up for $15 in a either a mixed or a mono league, you're fab with, and you've got him at that as a mid-tier price. Yeah, then I probably might do it there and take the chance, because you're probably resetting the clock at the very least and getting him for that price or cheaper. The question is, do you think you can get him for that price or cheaper? And
I think
usually no,
probably can't, because he just exploded so much last year.
Yeah. Talking about risky players, Joel Hernard asks, Garrett Cole ADP since March 1 is 125. It's I think it's 139 right now. In the main event, it is. Let's see what it's at there. I think it's even. It's got to be even higher now, right? Garrett Cole is 169 in 8 main events. Would you take him in that range? How low would you have to get him for?
So I have him lower. I have him kind of more in the range where we're talking about Perez. So I guess Cole's a better pitcher, but it's known that Cole's going to be out for a while. I feel like more so than with Perez. So I have him again down in that range of the Morton, Chris Sanchez, those kind of guys, Yu Darvish. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would not be the guy. And again, it's an FBC format, so I got to use a bench spot on Cole for a while. So I'm going to say I probably wouldn't take him in that range.
Yeah. And to answer the follow-up question, Cole went for $12 in AL Tout Wars. I think he was the first player thrown, if I recall correctly, or first or second player thrown. And he went for $12.
He also went for 12 in the mixed. Brett Sayre. also went, so he went for 12 in the mixed
And
as well.
I think in the mixed is where he's thrown first because Brett threw him at 12 and got him
Okay.
at 12, and off we went.
Right.
I was the auctioneer in that one there.
Okay. So that would be a really interesting start to an auction. I don't think I've ever been in an auction where the first guy thrown just went straight to the person who threw him.
Yeah.
Like, are you saying that Brett?
There has
Brett threw
there's
him
a
at 12?
canonical example of that happening though. One time, John Hunt threw Pedro Martinez at 50 to start an auction.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it was to start the auction.
Okay.
I don't know. It was definitely he threw him at 50 and got him at 50, and he was making a point that he was going to get Pedro.
That is really fun. The Cole thing's interesting. Like if Brett was like, if he has optimism on Cole and he's like, hey, I just got a $35 pitcher for $12 and I think he's only going to miss a month, then sure. It's great. I mean, if I'm in Brett's shoes, I'm always wondering like, could I have thrown him at 11? Could I have thrown him at 10 since no one bid? Have a couple extra bucks left for later. But anyways, that's a really cool.
Brett is the ultimate stars and scrubs player in that league, and it works out to his advantage. He's the defending champ. That's why he had the first nomination. He did total stars and scrubs, like an extreme way of doing that too. And I guess you look at it this way: it's a 15-team mix. Pitchers are going to emerge. I guess that's so. If he's getting an ace for $12, great. If not, it's $12. There are plenty of $12 players that fail.
Yeah, for sure. The rest of his pitching staff, he took Yamamoto for 29. Everybody else is a $1 or $2 player. The closest thing he has to closer would be Kyle Finnegan and James MacArthur, both for 2. And then when Cole's not playing, which will be for a little while, his number 2, 3, 4 starters are Charlie Morton, Andrew Heaney, Seth Lugo. It's a very stars and scrubs. Not only did he go stars and scrubs, but he went really heavy, like on the hitting side, spent very little money on the pay, about $50 on his pitching.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. That's really fun. That's a really fun. I don't think I would do it that way exactly, but I love seeing other people's builds. That's really fun.
It is. It's super fun to see.
Yeah.
Before we move on to other news and notes and then in my AL Tout Wars League, let's share our other commercial note here. It's officially fantasy baseball season, and it's time for MLB Best Ball on Rival Fantasy. That's right. Rival Fantasy now has Best Ball. Full season lobbies are live now until opening day with both fast and slow drafts. Then weekly and daily drafts will be available from opening day through the end of the World Series. So in-season best ball is very interesting too. Best ball is all the fun of the draft without the season-long management. Enter a league, draft your squad, and the app does the rest. No need to set your lineup or make waiver moves. The highest scores at the end of the regular season will be the winners. Invite your friends and start drafting for the 2024 fantasy baseball season today. Sign up at joinrival.com/RotoWire for a $200 deposit match and $25 in free entries. Welcome to the future of fantasy sports. Welcome to Rival Fantasy. Many of our writers are going to be participating in hosted leagues where you can go against them in Rival Fantasy in these best ball leagues. Another good way to do set it and forget it if you get a chance, or if you're like, especially if like you got a long layover or something like that, perfect thing to do. So go ahead and check that all out when you get a chance. All right, Fred, let's talk other news here. Our Reds, Fred, have not had a good spring. They have not had a good spring at all in terms of health. TJ Friedl being the latest. That happened. Literally, TJ Friedl was the next player nominated after Eury Perez. Someone was paying attention to the Twitter feed there in the Tout Wars Mixed League auction on Saturday there. And at first, we didn't know how bad it was going to be. Now we know it's pretty bad. Could be half a season as much. I haven't gone that extreme with the projection yet, but I'm getting closer there. This is on the heels of them losing Noelvi Marte for 80 games. Jonathan India's spring was slow to start. Matt McLean's season was slow to start. They've had a number of injuries. It had some relief pitcher injuries. Nick Lodolo's not going to be ready for the start of the season. Tough start to the season for the Reds.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is actually the one team that on the hitting side did have the depth to handle some of this. So I guess that's the only piece of good news is like they can put Jake Fraley. I know he has suffered what I think would be a minor but painful injury yesterday. Probably be okay. So they can put him into more of a full-time role. He can at least play against all right-handers. They had the infield depth to cover the Marte suspension. That was pretty well covered. So they have the depth to still have a really good lineup. Like when you look at the Reds' likely opening day lineup, still really good. They can replace Friedel's a good player, but he's not the linchpin in that offense. So they can move people around and and still have a really good lineup. The pitching, Lodolo is like really important to them. They don't have a lot of extra pitching. But anyways, from a fantasy perspective, I would not. I have Friedl in a couple leagues. I actually plan on dropping him in an NFBC league where I drafted him. I just don't want to use one of my 7 bench spots on him for half a season.
I could see it.
I don't think he's good enough. I liked him. I took him in like round 11 or so. But I don't think I don't know. I might hold him for a week or two. Like I might not force drop him, but I'll just for a middle reliever, but I'll drop him when there's someone I want. But I don't see me holding him for that long. I'm not sure. I haven't fully decided yet, but that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, I think I would want to hear I guess, well, you've got at least another week to find out more about his prognosis and his return, and that's going to help be instructive. If it's a month, I'd probably hold on to him. If it's June, I'd probably cut him.
If it's mid June or something, I don't know. I just don't know if I want to hang on to him that long.
Yeah, that's right. That's and the reaction to all this is with Candelaria, they already said was going to play, but Marte being suspended cements that. CES is obviously to the moon right now. He's going to play every day. Jonathan India is going to play every day. And I think that's one of the takeaways. I think Benson and Fraley benefit, but so does Stuart Fairchild. If you're a Benson or Fraley guy, be prepared to be frustrated when you see Stuart Fairchild in that lineup a lot. Or maybe Nick Martini even, because both of those guys are right-handed hitters. Benson's still not going to see left-handed pitchers that often. I don't think Fraley will either. I think David Bell is of that school that he wants to platoon the heck out of these players. But it does take a lot of the risk factor away from Spencer Steer, from Jonathan India, and from CES. That's what this whole thing does.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I took actually in my most recent draft, I took India in round 15. That was before the Friedl injury, but obviously after the Marte injury. Just thinking the path is clear now. Like Jonathan India, he could be their leadoff, and now after the Friedl injury, he could be their leadoff man.
Yeah,
like he used to be. Like he might go right back into being their leadoff hitter, and he's done that before. And if he's doing well with it, maybe he just stays there. We'll see. That's a lot of projecting, but yeah, I think so. How about this? If you're drafting right now, would you rather draft Fraley, Benson, or Friedl? And I know you could say context, blah blah blah. Let's say you've drafted a healthy team up to this point.
Yeah, just a straight up, clean slate thing. I would take Benson first. I think he's the best player. But it's close. I do think both Benson and Fraley are going to be in a platoon of some sort. But yeah, I don't want to take the pre-injured guy. I'm just not going to do that there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would probably put Friedl last in that group.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jonathan India batted leadoff yesterday, by the way, but that was also against a lefty. Matt McLean batted leadoff on Sunday, for what it's worth.
Okay.
So
what Fraley and Benson both have in common for fantasy is they are guys who can, as I sometimes like to say, stuff the stat sheet in a hurry, right? Like Benson last year, 287 at bats, 11 homers and 19 steals. Like these guys are better in fantasy than they probably are in real life. Like Fraley last year, only 336 at bats, 15 homers and 21 steals. Like these are guys who when they play, they get home runs and they get stolen bases, and that's what we want in this game. Even if they're not playing, if they're just playing fine, they get a lot of those things. So I think they're guys who are going to be really useful early in the season, both of them.
Yeah. One tool we have on RotoWire, I wanted to point out, I think we talked about it last time too, is we do have all the previous batting orders, and you can see who the opposing pitcher was. So if it's lefty or righty, or if there's any particular player. So I'm looking at the Reds here, and you know who I'm seeing batting second a lot? Elly De La Cruz. Elly De La Cruz is not batting at the bottom of the order. He's batting second a lot. 3 out of the last 4 games, and he didn't play the last one. Then played, then it was McLean once. It was Encarnacion Strand once. I don't think Elly played in either of those games. But then on the 12th and the 10th, he batted second. On the 8th and the 7th, he batted second. The 6th and the 4th and the 2nd, he also batted second. That's a lot of times they're spending a lot of critical, they're wanting to get him Elly more at bats in a critical spot in the lineup. Whew. I mean, everybody that's doing that second round Elly thing is kind of going like, yeah, I like that. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And actually, people on the Elly topic, like people who were, he could still end up in the minors, but people who were concerned that, if he gets off to a slow start, he can end up in the minors. Like suddenly they don't necessarily have the depth to
send
the minors.
They don't.
They'll probably, if he had a 640 OPS, and wasn't playing well, they probably just live with it just for his base running and everything else, and just let it hopefully he hits his way out of it.
He's hitting for average, but he also Daily Cruz also has a 526 BABIP in his at bats. He's still striking out 34% of the time this spring. So something to watch for there too. It's not all raindrops and rainbows and candy grams or whatever. Whatever the phrase is.
The Reds really do though. They do have this mix of players who are better for fantasy than real life right now. Like again, I mentioned Friedl and Benson. De La Cruz is the poster child for it. Like last year, like really valuable in fantasy once he was called up, and he's got a 710 OPS. Like you could argue, like
Benson's the opposite of that. He had like an 850 OPS, but he had 39 RBI because he didn't get to play enough.
Yeah, that's true. But the 11 homers and the 19 steals in limited playing time, like these are the Reds can run. Actually, I guess what I can boil it down to is the Reds can run, and the park promotes home runs.
Yep.
Like the Reds can hit home runs and they can run and they can steal bases. So India's another guy. Like India, if he's playing every day, India's going to hit his share of homers and he's going to steal some bases. Won't be the league leading, but last year again, 119 games, 17 homers, 14 steals. Like if he played all season, he's like a 20-20 type guy. So there's just a lot. The Reds can run and the park helps with home runs.
Yep, it does.
Get behind this offense. That's what we're saying.
Yes, especially at home. All right, we've got a ton of news items, and you have a heart out today, so let's rip through these. DJ LeMahieu, bone bruise, probably not going to be able to start the year. Where are you on DJ LeMahieu?
If I was drafting now, I probably wouldn't draft him. I actually drafted him in a league like 2 hours before that news came out, and to be my third baseman, which I was really annoyed about. So now I'm going to have to cover him. But I think this one feels like an IL stint, and I don't even know if it feels like there are going to be these backdated IL stints at the start of the year. We see that where guys miss like a week and it's backdated. I think this will be a real one where he misses a couple weeks. So at least, I think I just wouldn't draft him, and I like him as a leadoff hitter. And like, I don't love him, but like a replacement level, like I like him just hitting leadoff in front of Soto and Judge. He doesn't do that much.
If he's not batting leadoff, who's batting leadoff instead?
Maybe Anthony Volpe could be batting leadoff. He could be,
answer.
Or maybe that's the fun answer. The not fun answer would be maybe they just shift everyone up. Why can't Soto bat leadoff, right? And Judge bat second.
So the last 2 days it's Volpe and Grisham, by the way. But the day that Grisham batted leadoff, there was a lot of regulars out of the lineup. There was no Soto, there was no Torres, there was no Stanton, there was no. Well, obviously there hasn't been a Judge in a while. I mean, that we're kind of like talking about players that still don't know about right now. That's another issue.
Yeah, and if Judge is another issue. I was going to say though, with Volpe, if he bats leadoff, and this is a big if, but if he took advantage of it, he could stay there. Like when LeMahieu comes back, it's not like they'd be like, well, DJ's got to be the leadoff hitter. Like they kind of put him as leadoff hitter because there was no one else. I feel like that they don't really want to bat Soto leadoff, and there's not really anyone else. Like it's not like LeMahieu 327 on base percentage last year. Like previously, LeMahieu like a few years ago, sure, looks a lot like a leadoff hitter. LeMahieu last year, like I say, like 327 on base. He doesn't run. Like he doesn't have to bat leadoff. They could, if Volpe was doing the job, if Volpe could have a 330 on base at the start of the year, 340 on base, again, big if, but if he could do it, they could just leave him there, and LeMahieu could just bat sixth or something like that in the
lineup. Yeah. Garrett Crochet, named the White Sox opening day starter. How interested are you?
I'm a little bit interested, and I kind of got interested more yesterday, and when I started doing a little more of a deep dive on how his spring's been going. It's been going really well, and I'm trying not to get too excited about it because it's still the White Sox. Like he's still got that awful team around him. So how valuable can he really be? And this isn't like, it's not even also like he's not on a bad team with like a really pitcher friendly park or something like that. Like that's not helping. Nothing is helping Garrett Crochet except for the fact that this spring in 9 innings, he's got 12 strikeouts and no walks and no runs allowed.
Those are good things. Sure.
Yeah, really good things.
The K's especially.
Yeah, when they first named him their opening day starter, I thought, oh, like they're really desperate. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll take a little deeper look on this. And when I looked at it, I was like, well, this guy's really worth like a late round. Like he's worth a bench spot. Absolutely. Coming off, like this guy is was a prospect. 11th pick overall in 2020. Still really young. He's had some injuries and everything, but if he's healthy and pitching well, it's just hard to picture him racking up too many wins probably on the White Sox.
Too many innings for that matter. Also, I mean,
yep, for sure.
yeah.
You know, but on a crummy team like the White Sox, they could have him just come out and pitch, and if they have to slow him down or shut him down later in the season, and if we're talking about round 25 in your draft, then whatever. If you can use him now for a while, that would be huge. If he just pitched really well in April and May or something for round 25, that would be really big. So yeah, I think he's interesting as a late round pick.
Garrett Crochet is the player we're talking about right now, in case you just jumped into the stream with us. Jackson Merrill made their opening day roster, is going to be the starting center fielder for the Padres. How interested are you in Jackson Merrill?
Interested enough that I just took him in my most recent draft. The same one where I took Jonathan India. I took him. There's not that much buzz on Jackson Merrill. Like I'll look up his main event ADP right now too, because I feel like 278. Like I feel like for a good prospect who's got a job on opening day and looks like he'll probably, like, it's not a temporary thing. Like they're expecting him to keep it. Like, and he can run a bit. I feel like 278 is a really reasonable ADP, don't you?
I think it's reasonable. Top 20 rounds. It's first of all, it's Petco. It's a lineup that's not that great.
Yep, all those things.
The guy right behind him, Sal Frelick, is kind of an instructive example, though, because Frelick wasn't great last year, and despite a lot of similar prospect hype, similar level too. It's not like this is Jackson Holiday. This is not Wyatt Langford. There. It's definitely someone of the next tier down.
Yeah.
And sometimes those guys fail a little bit more often. I mean, you can see him get sent down too if he struggles.
Yep.
But they cared enough to send him to Korea, have him start in the overseas opening day lineup instead of having him get more reps stateside. To me, that's indicated they want this to work now. I mean, and that makes sense. I get it. I just think there's a lot of risk there, and the ballpark context isn't going to help him that much.
No, you're right. The ballpark. You just threw cold water all over my Jackson Merrill enthusiasm.
But where did you take him? Where did you take him?
Pretty late, probably around that ADP. I'll pull it up right now.
So that's fine though, right?
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
The whole. You're on the clock, dude. Yeah, I hear the ding.
No, I didn't ding. I don't know why it dinged. Maybe because I don't know why it dinged because I'm not on the clock in any drafts right now.
Maybe you didn't. Maybe it dinged on my side. I don't know.
I took him in round 21 in a 15-teamer, so after pick 300. I think at that point, I took him after I took Leody Tavares the previous round. Jeff McNeil went the pick before. Like, I'll give Jackson Merrill a shot before I draft Jeff McNeil. A nice thing on Merrill will be he'll be shortstop and outfield eligible in a couple weeks.
That's right.
It's kind of a nice little combo, especially like late in your draft. You're just trying to fill some spots. So anyways, I think at that point in the draft, he makes sense. You're right. If you move him up too much, then the fact that if you move him up into round 14 or 15, like you start comparing him to, I'm just looking at outfielders because he's going to be an outfielder, but Taylor Ward or someone like that, Stephen Kwan, like those guys are a lot more reliable. Taylor Ward gets hurt every year.
Similar profile to Merrill. Andrew asks about Colt Keith. He goes pick 298 in the mains. He's third base eligible now, but likely will rack up second base eligibility.
Yeah, he will.
I think I might be more interested in Keith, but he doesn't run as much as the one thing I think he doesn't run as much.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't.
But I also think the Tigers, I don't know. This is weird to say, but I think the Tigers have a better lineup. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. About the same? Probably about the same.
There's a lot of Tigers I like this year.
And not a great park, too.
Well, yeah, and terrible weather to start the season. Your turn to throw cold water.
I know, and then Keith doesn't run. And what I think, though, is happening with Keith, I think Keith's fine at his ADP. But what I think is happening with Keith is I think he's old news. Because the Tigers announced like way back in January, I felt like in January, I knew that Colt Keith was probably going to be in their opening day lineup. They kind of said that right away. So I feel like now we've got this spring where all these other prospects like Langford and Holiday are grabbing all the headlines, and Keith's just this boring late round. Oh, we already knew he was going to be on the team, but maybe he doesn't have the pedigree. Like, he's a 5th round pick from 2020. Like, he's really done a lot better in the minors than he was expected to do. So, I think I would take Merrill over Keith just because Merrill runs. So there's just more ways maybe for him to help me. If Keith doesn't hit, then he can't help you at all.
That's true.
If Merrill just hits okay, he could at least steal some bases. But yeah, I think they're comparable.
Yeah, I think they are too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little Baltimore Orioles, because there's a lot of depth chart battles going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Westburg got hit on the elbow by a pitch today and left the game. He's kind of the gateway to this conversation, because I kind of thought he was going to make the team as a starting second baseman, probably, or second or third base. Actually, third baseman. I actually think Jackson Holliday still has a pretty decent chance of winning a spot. But Kobe Mayo is killing it this spring too. Might make the team himself. He's hitting. He's got a 1068 OPS, 6 walks against 9 Ks. Jackson Holliday's got like an 880 OPS, but he's also got 14 Ks against 2 walks. Westburg was playing pretty darn well, but it's going to be tough for him to. It's going to be tough for him. If he's banged up here, and Westburg's the guy that nobody talks about. Westburg is the guy that always seems to be there late in drafts. And I've rostered him a couple times. He was kind of struggling this spring. 13 Ks, 1 walk. He was slugging. He had a 538 slug, but those 13 Ks scare me a little bit. Now he's hurt.
For sure. This is a roster that I've been a little bit leery in investing too much in, except for the star power. Like, I'm fine with the star power. I don't think I have any of the star power, but I would have been fine with them. I was competitive, my rankings with their ADPs. Mullins isn't really a star, but I think he's a fixture, like Rutschman, Henderson, but Santander. But once you get past that, like, it's just really crowded. And I think a lot of fantasy value is going to come out of it. It's just hard to determine who it's going to be. And for that reason, I didn't really get in on Westburg. I mentioned last week, I think you took Ryan Mountcastle in the AL auction. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it was just a boring pick. Yep.
Yeah. I mentioned last week that he didn't hit righties well at all last year. And I worry that if that doesn't change, that again, there's just so many people. I don't think you mentioned him when you were just going through them, but Colton Cowser is another guy, 24.
Oh, I love Cowser.
And having an amazing spring, right? So these are all guys where if a Westburg's not hitting well, if Mountcastle's not hitting well, if Austin Hayes, who's almost 29 and has been given a lot of chances, if he's not hitting well, they could just turn. Ryan O'Hearn is a really weird fit in that lineup in the super low ceiling, and he's their first baseman. Like, anyways,
but it was pretty decent last year.
Absolutely. Oh, he was. He hit kind of over his head last year for sure. So, but any of these guys, if they're not playing well, they're out.
Right.
And if they're not playing well in April or May, like, this team has the depth, they can be out. This team can push any of these guys out, and they have good players to replace them.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned Heston Kierstad, although Kierstad's having a bad spring. Austin Hayes is one of those guys that Hayes and Mountcastle are like people look at them as, they're blocking the way, but they're actually could be very valuable players in fantasy because they're in this good lineup and they're solid players. They're kind of like Jonathan India. India's less experienced than those guys. Everyone's like, let's move India out of the way so CS can play every day. Well, India is actually really liked by the team, and he can be pretty good too. Jeimer Candelario, we're all like, why did they sign him? But I'm glad they signed him now. With Marte having the 80-game suspension, Candelario can play. Candelario is someone that probably will provide some profit for the cost that he's going, because he is the non-sexy guy.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And jumping back to those Orioles, like Mountcastle's 27. Hayes, I would give him a hard time. He's 28. Like, these guys aren't like old.
They're not old.
Like 34-year-olds who are blocking all these prospects. Like Mountcastle could still have his best season. Hayes could still have his best season. Like, these guys,
even O'Hearn's 30.
Yeah. And some of these other guys who are hanging around kind of with Holiday, Jorge Mateo, Ramon Arias, these guys are all still also in their 20s. So they're closer to 30. So, but anyways, the team's loaded. There's going to be fantasy value out of it. I'm wary of investing too much in it, but late round picks in guys like Cowser, Westburg, we'll see what comes of today's injury. But anyways, like late round picks and all these guys, like, they could pay off.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Let's move on. I know there's other news items, but of course you can follow them. You can check out all the news on RotoWire. You can and parse some of that for yourselves there too. But I wanted to leave a little bit of time, because I know you got a heart out. Got to talk a little about Tout Wars. And I want to talk about, of course, I want to talk about me, Fred. Let's talk about my team, because I'm very self-indulgent.
I've been excited to talk about this team ever since you picked it. There's some things I really like about it. I'm just pulling it. I had it up. I think I might have lost it.
And I'm pulling it up here and for those that are streaming with us, I'm pulling it up as well.
No, here it is. Here it is.
Yeah.
You're going to pull it up for everybody. I was just,
Yep.
I'm
And
pulling it up.
by the way, if you go and I'm going to link the page for everyone here so they can follow along and follow in bigger print, bigger font if you want. When you get there and you go to the AL tab, make sure you scroll all the way over to the far right. Why? Because I finished in last place last year. So I just want a full disclosure on that. I had a very good and awful, lousy season. Mistake. I had a bad draft and it's compounded by bad decisions. Drafted Bailey over. He didn't make the team out of spring training. I cut him. Oops. I picked up Jake Berger. Yay. I cut him because I think he got sent down. So mistakes were made in this league. And we're all trying to catch Doug Dennis, who's won the last 2 leagues and finished finished second 3 years ago. He's running the old Uncle Ted because we don't have an innings floor in this league. It's a standalone league. There's no 900 innings pitch requirement. He's punting Ks and wins entirely, and he's trying to run it again this year. So we all have to react because you know what happens is every single starting pitcher gets expensive after that.
Yeah, it seems to have, when I was looking at it, it has a big impact on the overall league for sure, that strategy.
Yep. So my goal coming into this draft is I'm going to spend $200 out of my $260 on hitting, only $60 on pitching. I budgeted one $18 to $20 slot, $18 slot on closers, and I was going to probably just get one closer. Mm-hmm. But the closing prices were a little bit more expensive than I was hoping for. And I didn't want to push it into the 20s on any of these guys. Like I wanted to get Andres Munoz, for instance. And Andres Munoz went for 22. And I just Eric Samolsky from NBC Roto World took him at 22. I didn't want to go 23 there. Jordan Romano went for 20. Clase for 23. Jhoan Duran went for 24. Fairbanks was affordable at 17. I like that price, but I kind of just went down that path. Like, okay, fine. I'll just get a lot of second and third tier starting pitchers. Guys that have a certain profile. Like I'll try to find, some cheap, I'll get a cheap closer. And I did. I got a $10 Carlos Estevez, who is clearly the closer right now with Robert Stevenson having a setback with that shoulder. I don't think Estevez is especially good, but you just need to get the saves. And I think he will get the saves. All in all, I was not unhappy with the build.
No, I was surprised that, like you said, part of your plan was you planned on getting a better closer and spending more, and that didn't happen. So you shuffled the money into your pitching. I was a little surprised, like Bailey Ober's your ace, Carter Crawford's your number 2. I was a little surprised that you didn't maybe shuffle. Maybe Carter Crawford becomes Logan Gilbert, and you spend another $12 or so on. I just grabbed the guy in the next column, in the team right beside you, but like not Logan and Gilbert for any specific reason. But maybe you shift $12 or something into that, and then all of a sudden, someone like Ryan Mountcastle becomes a $1 player or something like that.
But I didn't want to do that because last year I just could not roster enough hitting. I just kept on, and that was the whole point for me. Is I wanted to make sure I had enough for hitting. I have a couple of $1 hitters. I'm weak I have one weak position, second base. 2 really.
It's an AL only, so you're going to have a weak position. Like
yes. But I wanted to get two catchers, 2 real catchers. I thought that was a priority coming in, and I think outfielders. A lot of people have some cheapo outfielders, and I tried that last year, and that's not my strength. So I spent up on outfield a little bit. So all in all, it was a very interesting team. Terrible team, no Yankees, according it says Famous J. I like that. Well played. He was in there booing every Yankee buy in the Famous J was in the head-to-head auction I was facilitating, booing every Red Sox buy and cheering every Yankee buy. So he's mad that I didn't take any Yankees, but it's also a Yankee heavy room there too. A couple of Yankee fans in the draft, so it's tough to get in there at reasonable prices. OBP instead of batting average, folks. Just remember that too when you're looking at these rosters. Tout Wars is different another way. Instead of a corner in a middle, we have 1 extra infielder. Instead of 5 outfielders, we have 4 outfielders. Instead of 1 utility, you have a utility and 2 swingmen, which can be any hitter or an extra pitcher. So in theory, you could have 11 pitchers. And I think in practice, a couple of people did. I did not. I wanted to get a lot of hitters there.
Yeah. So when I look at your team, what's something you mentioned? So you mentioned it's an OBP league. I do find that messes with people a bit. And I just finished my Tout Wars draft 2 finally after a month of slow drafting the draft and hold. Um, it like you like the OBP switch matters, but sometimes I find it makes people reticent to spend on the guys maybe who aren't OBP guys, like Adolis Garcia, for example, not a big walker, but still like tremendously valuable in fantasy. So you got a couple OBP anchors with Jordan Alvarez and Yandy Diaz. And then, and both of your catchers, Logan O'Hoppe and Bo Naylor, shouldn't hurt your OBP, like shouldn't kill it. Like you don't
Right.
have OBP killers. I think that matters too.
It does.
And then that allowed you to maybe grab someone like Garcia. Jackson Holiday, assuming he's up. I really loved your Jackson Holiday at 12. That was so my favorite picks of yours, because I know you were dying to hear what picks of yours Fred liked the most.
Tell me how great I am. I love hearing this. Let's go.
Okay. So my absolute favorite pick was Tyler Wells for $1. I just think Tyler Wells, he's a whip guy. So Tyler Wells is the guy who should be getting drafted in every mixed league right now. So for you to get him for $1 in it, like he's got a rotation spot, and we'll see what he does to your ERA, but he should help your whip. So, and he's on a good team. I love it. So I think he's a $1 mixed league guy. So a $1 AL only. I think that was great. In a league with unlimited IL and like an AL only, Kyle Bradish had 2, I think
it's
is
not
awesome.
Unlimited this year. It's 4 spots, by the way.
Okay. Still pretty good though. Like 4's a pretty good amount. I think Kyle Bradish is good. Like you can replace that $2 pitcher with just a middle reliever off waivers if you want, and then you'll be fine. Yeah, you've definitely, with him and Gavin Williams, you're definitely starting off with a couple IL spots, but that's okay. I think, I like the Bailey Ober 15 because I'm a Bailey Ober guy. I think the gap between him and these pitchers who are going for $25 is not that big. It's big in money for you, but it's not that big in what the performance will be. Like I think the gap between him and Skubal, him and Valdez is not going to be worth the $10 or $11 difference that was paid for them. So I think that's good. Love your Bowden Francis. I have to mention that. Actually, I don't love it, but I'm fine with it. Like you got Bowden Francis for $1. We talked way back at the start of spring training when Manoah hit those batters. And you said, Fred, if Manoah's not going to be in the rotation, who's it going to be as a Jays fan? And I said, probably Bowden Francis. And it is going to be him. So I took him in like round 40 in my Tout Wars draft and hold just in case. I don't think he'll turn out too much, but in an AL only, I wouldn't draft him in a 30-team league, mixed league right now. But there are round mixed league draft right now. But I think it's good. I love the Jackson Holiday. And I think everything, and I like the Matt Wallner for 7. I think everything else is fine. I'm a little worried. We'll see what happens with JD Davis. That's like a risk just in the sense of he just joined a new team. Opportunities are there. We'll just see. Like after what's been,
I think he's going to play a ton.
Yeah, for sure. It's just been
what's he going to do in Oakland
for him? And it's a crummy lineup. Let's just see how he does. The Nicky Lopez, by the way, for $1, I think is fine. Like he's playing every day for that team.
Yeah,
or a lot of days. He's playing most of the time to start the year for the White Sox. So
I also like the Harold Ramirez for $1 too.
Yeah, I think that's fine too. And they complement each other decently in the sense that like Lopez will get you some steals, but he's not going to get the on base percentage. Probably won't be great. Ramirez should have a decent on base percentage, but maybe this will be no steals, and then the power is not great with him, but he'll get on base. He'll play a bit. I agree. So, anyways, I think it's a good group. And Hoppy and Naylor, you've really hit like a range where I really like those catchers. Sal Perez went for 17, so he's in there at the same kind of price, and I have them all ranked very similarly.
Yeah, I'm looking at.
I think it's a good group. It'll just be, I think, whether you can make the pitching work, and I think whether if the hitting's working, you can always trade for pitching.
Yeah, I can, and that's kind of the way I was looking at it there, and I'm tired of having a desert of bats. I just wanted to have bats everywhere there because it was hard trading for it, and like the trades I made were like last year I traded Lance Lynn for Akil Baddoo, and that was the best I could do. And it's just like,
when you're the hard part, and I like to make trades, and I played in the NL only for 2 years in Tout Wars, and the hard part when you're trying to trade for bats is the guy who's trading you the bat. If you just want to get the bat from him and you can't really give him anything back, like he's going from that bat to like a 0. Like there's nothing else. Like if you need a bat and you just go to a guy partway through the season and you're like, hey, can I get Devers off you? I'll give you like a great pitcher. Like he's like, okay, well, who do I put at third base now? And you're like, I don't know. I don't have anyone to give you. That's why I need Devers.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like a mixed league where the guy can be like, okay, well, I'll work on third base from waivers, or, oh, well, you can throw me like, it's hard to make trades for bats in an AL or NL only league.
For sure.
Yeah.
On a related note, Adam asked, do you enjoy playing in only leagues? I struggle to see the appeal, Adam says. Adam, I love playing in it, but my original league is an AL only 4x4 league where we grandfather in the Brewers, and it's fun. It's the same people every year. I like digging into the corners and finding Harold Ramirez for a buck and thinking he could be worth $6. I love that pursuit. And if he's worth even more, even better. I do enjoy it. I would not want all of my leagues to be mono leagues. I like the variety. But yes, I do enjoy a couple of only leagues. I don't want all of them to be that way. But yeah, I absolutely love it. And Tout Wars, I've been doing AL forever too. Just like my AL home league even longer. But and then I have one NL only league too. If I wouldn't want to have all my leagues like that. But that's the original Roto leagues. That's in touch with my past. Now, if you're newer to fantasy baseball or rotisserie baseball in particular, I would not recommend it. I would recommend you play a mixed league where you know the stars first, because let's face it, it's overwhelming, and trying to know like the bottom, the depths of every depth chart. I mean, that's a struggle. And when you lose, there's going to be like 10 players rostered here that are going to get sent down at some point, probably early on, and 5 of them that won't make the final roster cut, and where there'll be a setback and you'll be scrambling. And that's part of the game too, but that might not appeal to everyone. I get that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I find once the season starts, the only leagues can be a little boring because of the lack of waiver wire, action and things like that. It's fun to have one or two of them for almost the same reason it's fun to do one or two of the 50-round draft and holds. It's fun if you really are into baseball. It's fun to get down to the depths. Like you asked me which picks I like. I named Tyler Wells, Bowden Francis, and Nicky Lopez. Like they're all for $1. They're all kind of scrubs at the bottom of the MLB player pool, but I'm interested in them for various reasons because we really like baseball at all the levels. So when I'm talking about what picks I like, I skip right past Jordan Alvarez. I'm like, yeah, Jordan Alvarez is great. Pay $39, great, whatever, sure. You grab your set hitter. So did everyone else. So the only leagues have some interesting components that you can't get in a standard mixed league where we can't really talk about Bowden Francis or Nicky Lopez or whatever, but these are guys who are in a major league rotation in a starting lineup most days for their team. So yeah, I think mono leagues are good, but they can't be, like you said, they can't be everything because the waiver wires is just not as exciting in them.
Yeah. I did fail in one mission, Fred.
Okay.
Adam Lee asked, did anyone take Joey Votto for a $1 flyer? Not only did no one take him in the auction, no one took him in the four-player reserve draft either. I feel like I feel bad about that. Well, I think he got hurt right after his first at bat, didn't he? Joey Votto did.
Who cares? You took Tyler Anderson. Like you could have taken.
I needed another pitcher. Well, because I had 2 injured pitchers. I wanted to take two pitchers on reserve. That's the only reason I could have. You're right. I failed my mission. You're right. I took CJ Cron instead of Joey Votto. I'm a very disloyal fan.
Tyler Anderson may make you regret that pick too. I don't care if you had 2 injured pitchers. By the time you're done with Tyler Anderson next week, you may be like, but I would have been better to just leave Kyle Bradish in my lineup.
Well, we do have a fab.
But anyways, you can go out and go get Joey Votto.
I can.
Fab.
I must. If he makes the team. Is he going to make the team? Is that guaranteed?
No. I actually think he does. How about this? I think Joey Votto doesn't want to make the team. I think that he is relishing this battle to work his way into a roster spot. He talked about how he hasn't done this in like 20 years. And I think he wants to go to Buffalo. I actually believe that. I think he wants to go to Buffalo. I think he wants to earn it. And
ethos of the game. I love it.
Yep. I think Joey Votto is having fun with this. This is the kind of thing you can do when you're eventually heading to the Hall of Fame. I think Joey Votto wants to go to Buffalo. I think he wants to, have a 350 on base, 400 on base. He wants to have the Jays promote him. He doesn't want to just be handed the job. We'll see where all that goes, but I think the most likely outcome here is a few weeks in Buffalo and then see how he hits. I actually think and I also think he wants to be ready. I don't think he wants to be on the team, not ready, not getting regular at bats, batting 130. Like, I think he almost would rather go to Buffalo and play every day for a couple of weeks, really get in a groove before they bring him up.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I'd still be interested in claiming him, especially with a short week at the beginning. I don't know. You'd have to think about it. That's a little trickier now because you got to put him in your lineup for the 3-day week or the 4-day week, but 3 games for most teams. Yeah.
Right.
And
Exactly.
take the zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Not
do.
sure
We're doing a fab run next Wednesday night.
Okay.
There'll be
I bet someone
not
claims
you because you're in draft and hold, but
that's right.
yeah. So
I check
you're
out
out
on
of
all
that.
those emails.
Yep. What other note? Just to defend myself, Tyler Anderson's got a 14-2 K to walk this spring.
Let's go. Okay, maybe
Let's
he's coming back
go.
around. Maybe he's coming back around.
Yeah.
Okay, and today we have to. I know I have a timeline, but we have to talk about your main event and your draft slot.
Okay, yeah. So I found out Sunday that who was in my league, and none other than one Christopher Paul Liss is in our league. We are in the same league together. He's not flying to Vegas, but and it's going to be exciting. He'll be reunited with Liss in the league together. We're going to do a podcast together next week to review our draft. He'll be drafting 13th, and I drew the first pick in my league. That was found that out yesterday. In fact, I landed and I had like 3 messages congratulating me in getting the first pick. I will be taking Acuna. There's a 95% chance of that. I know Spencer Strider went first in that $5,000 Mike the Mouth league on Saturday night. Keep in mind though, that's a standalone league. That's not an overall. I think there's more incentive to go Strider 1 in a standalone than there is in a overall contest. But I'm going to go Acuna, barring any sort of setback in the next 4 days. So that is my desire. And then the tricky part will be, when do I pull the trigger on pitching? And that's where like you can look at ADP, but I guarantee you Saturday morning live in Vegas, it'll differ from what it's happened in even other main events leading up to it. So of course I start looking to what pitchers are going to be available around. If I go hitter, what pitchers can I take? Now that we're taking Jhoan Duran as one less chess piece available, I don't like the pitchers. Like the top starting pitcher after, that would be available to me according to ADP is Joe Ryan or Cole Reagans. Do I want him to be my ace? I think I'd like him as my number 2. I don't think I'd like him to be my ace.
Yeah, it's if you wanted to take a pitcher on the 2-3 turn, you're looking at Yamamoto, which will, by the way, go way up or way down depending on how he does this week.
That's right. That's right.
So he'll either be readily available and you might not be sure about it, or he'll be long gone. And then it's Skubal, Gausman, like those are the next starters. I'm sure if I go a little further, Peralta, Zach Gallen, like those are your 2-3 turn guys. Pablo Lopez, you just miss out on by ADP, and George Kirby and Luis Castillo, you just miss out on. Same with Class now. But like, it's just one draft. So one of those guys may fall to you. I just named a bunch that go around pick 25. One of them may fall to you. But yeah, if you wait till the next turn, like you said, Joe Ryan, Cole Reagan, Zach Eflin, are you comfortable with those guys being your ace? Maybe
maybe
double tapping them or them in a closer or something like that.
Yeah, we just spent a whole a segment talking about not having an ace in my Tout Wars team. That Bailey Ober is my best starter there. I was comfortable enough to try that there. So maybe.
And then so and there is the trade. I mean, we talked about how much you usually enjoy picking in the middle. Like you're going to have to think about that too, as far as like you're not going to be part of any closer runs or anything like that. So like, do you feel the need to get a closer on the 4 or 5 turn where you can get you can get Clase, Iglesias, etc. Andres Munoz, like someone like that, because it looks like when it comes back to you, like you may have the option of grabbing, like right now, based on their ADP, Kimbrel, Helsley, and Clay Holmes are 87, 88, and 89, and you pick 90th. So like one of them may come back. Bednar's 86. Like one of them may come back to you, but maybe not. It's hard to say. So do you feel like you need to get a closer on the 4 or 5 turn?
That is a question that Tim Schuler and I have to kind of resolve. Yeah.
I mean, they're really fun questions when you already have Ronald Acuna Jr. in your lineup.
Right.
So you can do some really cool things. Like Vladdy is right around the 2-3 turn. Pete Alonso's around the 2-3 turn. Like those are power guys to go with a guy who steals a lot of bases.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'll tell you what, the most fun build is to go hitter, right? That's the most like, ooh, look at that. Look at that. Well, and then you got to pay the bill at some point in time. So if I went hitter, I'm probably going like 4, maybe 5 pitchers in a row after that. And then
I
you're
just
like,
did a
okay,
draft where I went hitter, 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 and then took 5 pitchers in a row.
right.
I think I took like Nola, Grayson Rodriguez, and Luzardo, and then 2 closers. Now you can't do that because in the main the closers are going to get pushed up. Like you wouldn't be able to do it in that
That's
order. But I did go hitter, 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 and then 5 pitchers. Like you said, you could go hitter, 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 and then 4 pitchers or something like that in a row, or maybe 3 and 4 rounds, and then start alternating on each turn. I don't mind picking on the turns. I have to say, like, you can plan out both picks. There's no surprises. So
Yeah.
I don't mind. Like some people don't like being hemmed in right on the wheel. I don't mind it because again, like when it comes to you get 2 guys. There's no playing games where you're like, well, do I think the guy on the wheel is going to take the closer, or do I think he's going to take a start? Like you don't know any of that. You get your list, you take your 2 guys. I don't know. I don't mind. I actually don't mind it. And if I get to start with Acuna, I really don't mind it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the endless possibilities. It's definitely one of those, like, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to contemplate. It's also a little nerve wracking to contemplate.
Yeah. Having Acuna is such a soft blow. Like I would not, this year, I really don't want to pick like 15th or something, like picking on the end and having my first pick be Bryce Harper. Like I'm not really that fired up about that. Like when you have Acuna, yeah, I feel like I would probably, I would love to go Acuna and Alonso, but I have a lot of Alonso. We talked about that last week or a couple weeks ago. There's Luis Robert you could take around the turn. You kind of like him this year.
Yeah, I do. At that
cool
point,
power. Those are 2 really cool power speed guys, Acuna and Robert.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do say something's got to give, and it might be closers. It might very well be that I wait until like 120 and get like just something gruesome or one.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't love, if it holds to ADP, I don't love the starters on the 2-3 turn. Like I just don't know if I can wrap my head around Skubal or an injured Gossman. We'll see what it says about Gossman by then. I don't know. Maybe
that Gossman injury just changed the whole feel for the tier. You know,
it does. Yeah, for sure. And these other reliever injuries have changed the feel for the closer tier. Like you've now got, it's pushing all these other guys up a little bit, right? So
you used to get like Castillo and Kirby at the turn, and that's not happening. Kirby's got 1 league where he went 29. Castillo has 1 league where he went 28. By the way, neither of those make it to me. Glasso has 1 league where he went 35. He also has another where he went 11. So, I mean, that just tells you the range. You know, I got Wheeler in our league together in mixed labor, and that was at pick 26. That's never happening anymore. Wheeler, man, he's to the moon. His lowest pick is 22 now.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking about some of these scenarios. I just would want, I think with what's left on the 2-3 turn, I think I want more reliability than that. If I'm going to take I think if I had to take one of those starters like Skubal, I think I'd just rather wait. I'll just rather wait and take Zach Eflin or Cole Reagans or Joe Ryan. Those don't feel great either.
Well, now you're seeing
Maybe you
the
should
dilemma.
take Strider. No, you shouldn't. I actually, being honest, I don't think you should take Strider. Nothing against Rob who took Strider and everything, but I just think
I think Phil took him in a diamond in a $5,000 league too. So
okay, I just think Acuna, like, I don't know. Well, why am I doing projections in SGPs if I'm not taking Acuna first overall? Because in mine, and I think yours is the same, he comes out like unbelievably far ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
So even when I get a little conservative on the base stealing or something,
agreed,
like, he still comes out so far ahead. So I'm taking him, and I'll figure out the rest after that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the only time he doesn't come out ahead is the disaster scenario where he misses a month or 2 or more.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But man, I also like just looking at gift horse in the mouth. Like you got pick 1, Acuna is clearly the guy. Like I would really
don't overthink
myself. Yeah, if I didn't pick him and he hit 40 homers and stole 70 bases, like I'd be like, oh my gosh. And he just did it the year. Like, how did I miss this? He just did it. So I don't know. I would be all in on that.
And when I set my KDS, I set it 1 first and then 7 for what it's worth.
Right. And why? Oh, I see. Because you'd be in the middle if you couldn't get Acuna.
Middle, and I get my pitcher. I get my pitcher in the second round. Whereas I'm not guaranteed to get my pitcher. Maybe I will go hitter. We will go hitter. Me and Tim Schuler, that is. We partner up on this team.
Well, I know you'll live tweet out your picks, so I will be excited to follow it on Saturday.
Especially because I have 28 picks between my picks, so I should have plenty of time.
You've got time. I'll expect some puns then. If you're going to got 28 picks between your picks, I'll expect some puns after. The
burden is high.
Yeah. Like when you're picking seventh, it's hard sometimes because you don't get as long between your picks. You're trying to come up with a pun. Like you've got time to come up with a pun. Tim can cross the guys off your list, and then you can jump back in a few minutes later. You'll still have 20 picks, so you go again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I went the whole podcast without making a crochet sewing joke because there's a good thread on that Twitter yesterday. So, but should have been a thread on Threads instead of Twitter. But I made that joke too already, so I'm not even making it now. All right. Time. We're starting to go in talking about my own tweets. That means it's time to wrap it up. And I know you got to get out of here anyhow. So perfect timing. Fred, good luck with your son's hockey tonight.
Thanks.
And we'll talk. We'll have a lot to talk about next Tuesday.
Can't wait. Yeah, can't wait for next Tuesday.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Tune in to James Anderson for tomorrow's podcast. I believe it's Zola covering for my Thursday. I'll be on the road to the main event on Thursday, so I will not be podcasting Thursday. But next Thursday, Liz and I are going to review our draft, so I can't wait. That's going to be loads of fun. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks for all the great comments, all the comments in the stream. I really love it, and thanks for those who listen on the podcast form. Take care. Thanks for listening to RotoWire.